Oh, welcome. Oh, it's so nice to see you two friends together. So Steve has been to almost every Phocuswright conference, at least since KAYAK started. And Paul, you haven't been here, and I don't think it's been 7 years when you were running Lola.
I'm happy to be back.
So welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Can we bring up some photos? I know we have a couple of photos up there. So let's go. So it's 2003, it was late 2003 when you met. And I don't know when that was taken. And you started KAYAK in 2004. So Steve pitched KAYAK to you, and then it was like almost an immediate decision to do it, like over a couple drinks or?
Something like that.
Something like that? Okay.
Maybe a few drinks.
Just a few.
Paul, you look the same, by the way. I guess that means you looked 60 when you were 40.
Okay, so it didn't take too many drinks, and then so that's a 20-year anniversary, and then you have a 10-year anniversary because you IPO'd in 2012, and then sold to Priceline for $2.1 billion in 2013. Okay, next photo. Oh, by the way, who's that guy in the middle? I'm sorry.
His name is Lincoln Jackson, and he was the design lead for KAYAK.
Okay. He
created
the UI, or?
He did the whole UI, yeah.
And here's Time Magazine, 2007.
Crazy.
Okay. And next photo. That was a big day.
That was a fun day.
That was a fun day. So before that, you had a few successful exits. Steve, career at Orbitz, right? And then this happened, and then the acquisition happened, and then that's when you kind of went your separate ways. Steve decided to stick around, thankfully, and you like, the corporate life is not my thing. First of all, we didn't think the corporate life was Steve's thing either. We all had bets on how well he was going to do, and here he is. We much thrived under that.
Haven't been caught yet.
Haven't been caught. That's the key. And you decided it wasn't your thing. So what'd you do?
Right after KAYAK, I did what a lot of people do coming off a big hit, which is I started an incubator, which means I really had no idea what to do. And I invested in some other startups. But after doing that for about a year, I got tired of not doing my own thing. So we started Lola Travel, which is a business travel company. We ended up selling that to Capital One.
So what went on with Lola? Now, because Lola was like about combining kind of the human touch, right, with technology to provide service.
Yeah, so we had real agents, and it was all about trying to deliver a user experience that was designed for business customers, and then having a management platform where the CFO of the company could set the policies and procedures.
Okay. And do you think that is something that would be needed today with like ChatGPT and AI, or do you think we can do it all without
Customer service definitely is being reinvented across every industry using generative AI, but still, corporate travel, I think, still needs a lot of improvement. KAYAK has a really good product that they're working on now, and I think the legacy systems really need to be updated.
Okay. So, Steve, talk a little bit about, how was your year? Because now you launched Enterprise.
We did.
You got a couple you got Price Waterhouse, which is a big client. I mean, are you going after like Amex and BCD with this thing?
Yeah, I mean, look, who in the room enjoys their corporate travel product? A few. Do you use KAYAK? Oh, Black Sky. I think everyone's been dissatisfied with the corporate travel tools for a long time. There's been a lot of people trying to work on it. And I think we're finally at a time when the solutions are pretty darn good that are coming out. Now we just need to go through the sales cycle of companies actually signing up for it and using it. So we partnered with PricewaterhouseCoopers and an amazing new company called Black Sky, who was one of your top 25 startups, and off we go. And actually, we've got 2 new clients that are on the platform, Diageo, which is a big conglomerate, and then our friends at TripAdvisor. So it gives me great pleasure to say that Matt Goldberg, their CEO, is going to be using KAYAK to make his next booking.
Good one. What do you think of corporate travel? How would you reinvent corporate travel if you could?
I would definitely use generative AI to do all the email processing. It's amazing how much email processing is still done by humans. where you'll email your corporate solution saying my boss needs to be in London on Tuesday and Paris on Thursday, and a human reads that email and process it, which is crazy. So I would try to get instant response to any customer service query. I think that's probably the first thing I would work on.
And what are you working on now? Because you talked about, what you're doing with your incubator, but you have Dietz, right? Is that that's your like travel app?
Yeah, Dietz is the new company. That's where I'm spending most of my time. It's Dietz.com. And right now we have a our entry point is a generative AI for creating travel guides, bookable travel guides. So you can create your guide to any city. But that's sort of the tip of the iceberg. And you'll see over the coming months what we're really building. The next
I thought it was reviews as well, like sharing.
Yeah, we had, so it was a city guide for restaurants, hotels, and activities. But we're adding a booking capability at the end of the year. And then the next major release is going to be in April. And it's going to be a lot different from what you see today.
Okay, yeah, because itinerary management as an app using Gen AI, we're going to see quite a few of those. But we're going to see something unique.
Yeah.
From Dietz. Okay, good. So I just want to know, like, you two are still good friends?
Yeah, we still hang out.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you talk about? Like, do you talk tech a lot, or is it sports? Or?
We don't talk tech. We, talk drinks and fun times and, things we like to do. It's not about business.
Because you're different. You're both different. I mean, you have different backgrounds.
Different and similar.
Yeah, and similar. So how are you different? How would you say you're different?
Well, we got a different set of superpowers, right? So Paul's great at people. Like, he can recruit the most amazing team. And when he left, the guy who replaced him, who's out in the audience, Yorgos, is still at KAYAK, for example. So you can code. I can't code for shit. He can see product. I can't. But I can do commercialization. I can raise money. I can speak at events like this. So it was pretty complementary. And I think that a lot of great companies have co-founders that do that. They complement each other. So I miss working with Paul, but I don't have the gas in the tank for doing another dating app. So good luck with that, though.
Yeah, because you had separate offices too when you were working, right? Because you were doing the UI, you were working on the commercial.
Yeah, the tech was done in Boston and the commercial in Connecticut.
Right.
So either Steve was coming up to Boston every week, or I'd go down to Connecticut or New York.
Okay. It's a good combination.
I'm sorry?
A good combination.
Yeah, it worked incredibly well. It was a very fun 10 years of my life.
Okay. So Paul, you obviously you still have an affinity for KAYAK. Still good friends with Steve. When you look at the business, like, what would you have done differently if you stayed? Would you have done something differently if you stayed?
Yeah, the main struggle I have with KAYAK, and I've told this to Steve, is meta search, I think, is broken in many ways. I have the same problem with Google Hotels and Google Flights, where you go onto KAYAK, which I still think is a great site. I think it's the best travel site. But you do a search, you find a hotel, it'll show you 5 places to book. Some of them are sites you'd never heard of before. You click off, you go to that site, completely different user experience, have to enter your home address, your billing information again, have to join another loyalty program, and it's sort of it's a bad user experience. So the first thing I would do, and pay attention to Dietz, is have an integrated booking experience. It still gets you the inventory across dozens of sites, but with an integrated UI. That's the first thing I would work on.
So you're going to compete with KAYAK, Dietz?
Yeah, I mean, some people on the team describe the April release as a KAYAK killer. We're going after KAYAK in a different way. It'll be a different product.
Yeah. You're late to the party. Google beat you there.
But we'll see.
Yeah. So I personally disagree. I mean, I think KAYAK does a really great job comparing prices and showing a complete picture of what you can book. And then we give you choice. So unlike Trivago and TripAdvisor, who don't have a booking capability within their own experience, we do. But we also let you go supplier direct or OTA direct. So you can do what you like.
But in terms of like loyalty, do you point though, like, Points.me was just here, right? And then we have, one key for Expedia, but it's true, like you are doing disparate things and you're on several different loyalty programs. Can something be done about that?
Yeah, we're not going to have a loyalty program at KAYAK. Yeah. So, and most of the folks who use us are indifferent to where they actually are going to book.
Okay. So, what I'd like to ask you, so this is like again, it's been 7 years since you've been here. What are you seeing, like, what do you look at and say, this is broken, needs to be fixed? And what ideas are you getting for your other businesses?
So for me, like probably everyone in the audience here, I'm pretty excited about OpenAI and Bard and all the Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, all the tools coming out. It's making us way more productive. I think code is no longer the moat. It doesn't matter how many engineers you have. Like my 10 engineers, I'm happy to compete against a company with 1,000 engineers because a lot of the code these days is written by AI. So for me, there's a huge productivity boost with the tools that have come out over the last year. And I think that's going to reinvent every industry, not just travel. As new technology being built, it will take advantage of the latest trends and be able to innovate faster than a company built off of older technology.
Do you see it more, you know, being productive on the productive side in terms of cost savings, or do you also see, say, Gen AI as a conversion tool?
It's cost savings for sure, but even more important that it allows one person to build a whole product where before you needed an entire team. Like for example, in all my companies, I had researchers doing competitive analysis and market data. You don't really need that as much now because Bard works incredibly well at doing competitive analysis and studying like why one site is better than another one at SEO or what the commercialization is, number of users. So it really, the AI tools make people super productive. And I always think smaller teams build better products than bigger teams because there's more integrity and sort of cohesion of vision without having dozens of people arguing over features and fonts and where to put things. Smaller teams can build, I think, better products.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then what about with you, Steve, KAYAK? I mean, what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably not as excited about Gen AI as Paul is. And I think the benefit's going to accrue to the big brands. So I think it's going to help big brands get better and take market share. And that's because we can actually implement and test a lot of this stuff. And we have a lot more data which we can use to inform the development of that output. So I wouldn't bet on the KAYAK killer being successful. I love you, Paul, but we'll see. I think the big meta search companies will continue to prosper, and the big OTAs in particular, Airbnb, Booking, and Expedia are going to take advantage of this at the expense of the small
So you
guys.
think, okay, yeah,
I'll give an
but isn't there
example.
democratization with, no? Okay, give me your example.
I think there is, but the productivity thing really cannot be overstated. So my favorite feature at KAYAK, which is the last thing I worked on, was the trips product. Mm-hmm. So it's the main reason I use KAYAK today, or it's the main reason I have been using KAYAK is just having an itinerary, detailed itinerary I can share with family about knowing where I'm traveling and when I land and all that. So KAYAK has a team of 10 people, been working on that for 10 years now. We rebuilt trips from scratch for Dietz with 2 engineers in 3 weeks, and it works better than KAYAK trips. And the reason we're able to do that is we built the whole product with AI.
You're like brothers, like competitive brothers.
Now you just gotta, I mean, the biggest impediment to all this stuff isn't honestly product. You can build a great product, it's actually getting awareness and usage, and that takes marketing spend. So, that's the barrier.
That's why the big guys are just
and
bigger.
if you look at all
if
you look at all the startups that have emerged over the last few years in the travel tech space, particularly in lodging and hospitality, but even the meta players, there's been a tremendous amount of value destruction in market cap and cash flow because no one can build a brand. It's really tough to build a brand.
We have a question. I think it's through the video, though, from someone in the audience. I don't know if we could just bring that up. Okay, while we wait for that question to come up. There we go. You recognize that guy?
Terry, great to see you guys together. And I wish I was there to harass you in person. But I'm off talking to a group of dairy farmers in Orlando. I'll be there tomorrow. Since this is pre-recorded, I can't actually say what I want. So how about this? You guys used to listen carefully to us board members, grin, and then do exactly what you wanted in the first place. And I'm not arguing with the result. It was right about 99% of the time. But today, as you look back at KAYAK's long success, is there anything you regret not doing? Any big trend we missed, any step we should have taken, or a mistake that we made that startups might avoid?
I'm actually in the middle of writing a LinkedIn article right now about my 10 biggest failures at KAYAK. I made a lot of mistakes. If I had more time, I could probably come up with dozens, not just 10. But as far as what things we missed, we built a TripAdvisor competitor really early on to have discussion boards and reviews, and that was a complete failure. And the lesson for me in that was you really need to understand brand and user intent. And when people go to TripAdvisor, they're expecting to read reviews. When they go to KAYAK, they're expecting to buy product. So even though I thought we had a better product than TripAdvisor, it didn't get used at all because that wasn't people's intent. So that's an example of a failure of something that we thought we could build with tech, but realizing that tech isn't everything. There's brand that matters too.
To have what, 6?
Can I answer it?
Yes,
Sorry,
of course you
Lorraine.
can.
So the biggest failure in my mind, and maybe you'll agree on this, is we tried to buy ITA software, and Google outbid us. We tried to buy them for $700 million. Google outbid us for $730. And that made a big change in the industry because Google Flights, that enabled Google Flights. And if we had actually pulled that caper off and we had Microsoft helping us bid, if we just bid $50 million more, boy, what a difference the industry would look like today. So that's the one I think we missed.
Things would have been different. You don't think Google would have figured out another way to do flights?
No, they would have had to go through ITA software. But I also think that Google, if they wanted to, could have outbid us by another $1 billion. So who knows?
But to have, how many exits have you had?
6.
6, right. So six exits. You had to have a few failures as well. So
Any,
you had
any company I worked on full time had exits. I've had, my incubator I think was a failure because we invested in 6 companies and only one of those ended up with an exit. So I wasn't that great at running an incubator, but when I actually designed the product myself, I've had pretty good results.
What are some of the other things though you're working on besides Dietz? Yeah,
So right now the
dating.
2 major products, we have about 4 or 5 companies under development. Mm-hmm. The 2 major ones we've been talking about publicly is Dietz, where I spend most of my time, and then when we sold Lola Travel to Capital One, I kept the name Lola. Lola actually was the first choice for KAYAK, but we couldn't afford the domain name. After KAYAK, when I created the business travel company, at that point I could afford it, so I bought it. It was a very expensive domain. But now I'm reusing it, and as Steve mentioned earlier, we're actually, my fiance and I are actually building a dating app called Lola Dating, so it's lola.com, and we're launching in Boston in December. It's a highly differentiated product, and it's an incredibly fun thing to work on.
Dating, great. That's dating app. It's good.
Not for me. I'm locked down.
So I guess it was quite a few years ago that there was a book written about you, right? Truck Full of Money by Tracy Kidder. You said a lot. I mean, we didn't really get into everything, your philanthropic efforts, everything you've done, giving away a lot of your money. Also teaching, sharing, mentoring, right? You've done a lot. You're very giving person. So I guess it kind of affected you differently, right? Than maybe Steve, would you say, when there was that big sale to Priceline?
Yeah, the sale of Priceline was life-changing, not just for me and Steve, but for everyone at the company as well. And everyone at the company who made money, many of them who are still at KAYAK, or also I heard this morning there's 100 KAYAK employees who used to work at KAYAK and left. They call them boomerangs, so people keep coming back. It definitely changed the lives of many people. For me, it allowed me to get more serious about my philanthropy. I've started 5 nonprofits now, and 3 of them have scaled, 2 of them are new, but it's just incredibly, incredibly rewarding for me to be able to do that.
And Steve, I mean, a silly question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Any regrets that you stuck around with KAYAK? Are you still loving it?
I still love it. I mean, we've got a lot of unfinished business at KAYAK and at OpenTable, which I help oversee, and we've got an amazing team there. I mean, I just wish we had anticipated Google Flights a little bit more than we did.
So you still have that regret?
And it's not just a KAYAK-related thing. I mean, if you look at TripAdvisor, that's a company that, as recently as 2014, was worth $15 billion. Now they're running to stand still at $2 billion in market cap. You look at Trivago, this was a company that was worth $6 billion at their peak when they went public. Now they're worth $200 million. So it's been a big value suck out of the
What do you think happened with them?
Into Google.
With Trivago?
Google happened to all of us. So.
But you fared better, right, KAYAK?
We're doing, I mean, look, being number 2 to Google, which is what we are in terms of size and shape and P&L heft, is still a good position to be in. But all 3 of us would be in a much better spot if there was more of a level playing field. But I'm not here to bitch, by the way. I'm not seeking regulatory changes in the way they operate, because I don't think they're not likely to happen. But I do think it would be great for the dwarves who are the meta dwarves, and Google would be Snow White, that we got to find a way to fight back and get.
So not worth lobbying for, though? Not, see change?
I think regulators have a really tough track record of not getting outsmarted by the companies that regulate. And I fully believe Google can outsmart even the EU.
So I want to ask, what would your book be called?
Got lucky, maybe. Because I think we did two things really well at KAYAK. We put ourselves in a position to get lucky by building a great product, hiring a great team, having a ton of financial backing, and then making a lot of good decisions and executing well. But then we got lucky. We timed it right. We got public. We had a very successful acquisition with Booking Holdings, and it's been a fun ride ever since. But luck plays a big role. So for you entrepreneurs in the room, yeah, having a great idea, plan, and financial backing, that really helps, but you also got to get lucky.
What are your 3 key challenges for next year?
We have a very aggressive P&L that gets handed down from God at Booking Holdings, Glenn Fogel. We've got a lot of work to do on the core product of flight, hotel, and car meta. And then we've got to get this growth engine called KAYAK for Business to be more than just a product, to actually have a P&L.
Okay, great. And what are your goals, just to get Deets going? And you got some big news coming up.
That's my number one priority, is getting Deets going. Yeah.
Okay. So if you and Steve did get back together, because it started again over drinks in 2003 in Boston.
We met in Boston.
In Boston. And then, do you just want to tell the story? Because it is a really good story about what happened.
Yeah. I'll tell my version, then Steve can edit. So I had sold a company to Intuit, and I served as VP Technology for them, and I was an EIR at Greylock. And one day I went over to General Catalyst in Harvard Square to look at a company for a friend of mine, Larry Bond, who's a partner there. And as I was leaving, Joel Cutler saw me, one of the other partners at General Catalyst, and he said, "What are you doing here today?" I said, "I'm looking at a company for Larry." And he goes, "I want you to meet Steve Hafner. He's one of the founders of Orbitz, and he wants to start a travel company. He's looking for a CTO." I said, "I'm happy to talk to him." So we shook hands, went down to Legal Seafoods, had a couple drinks. Steve gave me the pitch. I liked it a lot. I liked Steve a lot. And my memory is, I said, "So you're looking for a CTO? What do you want to pay?" And Steve said, "I'll pay 4% and $1.50." And I said, "That's a great package. I think, I love the plan. I'll find someone for you." And Steve said, "Why don't you do it?" And I said, "No." And he said, "What would it take to have you do it?" Because I wanted to start my own company again. He said, "What would it take for you to do it?" And my memory is, I said, at a minimum 50-50, and Steve shook my hand and said, "Let's do it." And it was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life, just to partner up with this guy.
So it was just a matter of hours. And then what did that do with the valuation?
Oh, yeah.
Took it up.
Yeah. We went upstairs to Joel Cutler, and Steve said, "Good news, bad news. The good news is I have a co-founder now, and we're each putting $1 million in tomorrow," which he neglected to mention to me over drinks. And then he said, "The bad news is I'm tearing up the term sheet because we have a much higher valuation now." And Joel's like, "I introduced you 45 minutes ago." Anyway.
Yeah, it turned out okay for him, actually.
Yeah. And the rest is history. So what would you do? So if the two of you did get together again and launch something, what would it be?
I don't know. It wouldn't be something in the travel space. I think I'm out of gas for going against the big guys in the travel space. But maybe we do dating. I don't know. I'm not a customer of that, so I can't evaluate it. That's one thing I loved about KAYAK, is we could use our own product and iterate.
I mean, in the industry, I'd like to work with Steve on would be healthcare. Healthcare is so fucked up, and I think it would need. I think it'd be healthy to have some people start from scratch.
That'd be great. Do you have it in you to do that? I mean, that's a big undertaking.
Steve's pretty busy right now at KAYAK.
He's pretty busy.
And open table, and a home.
So if you did get back together, let's just say what would the name of the business be?
Well, I'll tell you the top 5 names for KAYAK. We hired a brand agency in New York, and over several weeks we came up with dozens and dozens of names. We wanted just like a nice word. Lola was our first choice. We couldn't afford it. KAYAK was our second choice. And one funny story that Terry referred to, I think, is when we announced to the board that we're naming the company KAYAK, one of our board members said, "You'll name this company KAYAK over my dead body. That's a terrible name. Everyone's going to think you do like adventure tourism." And being the good entrepreneurs that we are, we looked at that board member and said, thanks for your input, we're calling it KAYAK. And so we know the role of a board, and the role of a board is don't let them design products, don't let them design brand. That's kind of what we do as entrepreneurs. The third choice was cake, because who doesn't like
that
cake?
one. That's a good one.
The fourth choice was rice, because it's ubiquitous and simple. And then the fifth choice was probably a really terrible idea, was hive, like a beehive of activity.
Cake was the right name.
Yeah, hive is, it's a negative connotation. Cake would have been a good one.
Also,
Everybody likes cake, and when you say it, you smile.
There's always time.
That's also a good band.
Yes, yes. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul English and Steve Hafner.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.